Welcome to That's a Hard No, the podcast about learning to say no and set boundaries to live our best lives. I'm your host, Heather Drago. You may think, because of this podcast, that I'm a boundary setting expert, but I'm not. I'm an expert at struggling to set boundaries. But you know what? I'm working on it, and it is getting easier. Follow along with me as I learn from fellow strugglers and experts so that you too can start saying no without feeling fear, guilt, or FOMO.
You don't know where to go. Unfriendly applications got you feeling low. You're not sure what to do. Weight of expectations is coming down on you. There's a phrase you should know. Tastes so much sweeter than hello. That's a hard no.
The day is finally here, ladies and gentlemen. The marketing-focused episode we've all been waiting for, or at least I have. Who's ready for a thrilling conversation about click-through rate optimization and the churn rate on B2C target spends from last quarter? Just kidding. I won't bore you with all the nerdy details of marketing that I love. I do, however, want to share all of the ways I run into setting boundaries in my line of work. It's not all designing websites and taking cute headshots, though we do plenty of that. Marketers often run into some real moral gray areas. How specific do I make my targeted advertisements? Women between the ages of 18 to 35 is surely broad enough not to criticize, but nowadays, I could send my boutique coffee mug straight to the Instagram feeds of female coffee-enjoying college students whose parents make more than $100K a year and live in Toledo. Is that too far? And how do we ethically participate in social media marketing when we know how damaging all the various platforms have been on individuals, relationships, and society at large? And what about AI and all the new marketing hacks that seem to pop up every week? As marketers and people, we're often faced with these ethical, moral, and yes, even strategic questions. What works, and what works without hurting other humans? Where are the boundaries that each of us should set? And even if you set aside the work itself, the marketing industry is hyper-competitive, hyper-volatile. Folks are always trying to underbid, to outwork you for those great projects. I know I'm supposed to set a healthy boundary around working too much, but will I miss out on business opportunities? I know I'm supposed to have a healthy relationship to failure and rejection, but when you work so hard to even have the option to make a proposal, it's difficult to stay off the emotional roller coaster. These are issues I'm working on all the time, and it's not always easy. To help guide us through these turbulent waters is today's guest, Jay Schwedelson. He's the founder of SubjectLine.com, the CEO of Outcome Media, and one of the top marketing experts in the industry today. He guides organizations on their marketing strategies across multiple industries and navigates these dire moral straits with regularity. Jay, it's so nice to meet you. I'm such a fangirl. I listen to your podcast religiously. I read your weekly newsletter, or actually maybe more than weekly. I use your subjectline.com, and I've taught all my people to use it. I share it with my clients all the time. So I'm really excited to have you here.
I'm thrilled to be here. I'm excited to talk. I love what you're doing. I love kind of the mission of this podcast. So thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. So let's start with this question. It's kind of heavy. Sorry.
Uh-oh.
What is ethical marketing, and how do we go about our work with the well-being of both our clients and other humans in mind? It's kind of big, kind of heavy. Go wherever
That
you
is
want.
it is a big, heavy one. I think that there's really two sides of it. There's some pieces of marketing where people raise their hands and they say, yes, I want to sign up and hear from a brand. I want to buy from a brand. I want to get on their newsletter list. And in that space, it is respecting the agreement that the brand has made with the person, that brand is going to live up to their end of that bargain. And to me, that's the ethical piece. Are you living up to your end of the bargain? And that's right. I would say a little easier to do when somebody's raising their hand, showing their interest. I think the more difficult ethical side of marketing is we're just inundating people in every corner of their lives. And when is it acceptable? and when is it not? And by the way, we happen to be heading into a presidential election year,
Yeah,
and
get
the
ready.
inundation is going to be, regardless of who you like or don't like
Yeah.
or whatever, the idea of ethical marketing is going to go out the window because it's just going to be nonstop marketing.
Oh yeah. I happen to live in a swing state in a highly contentious county. And we years ago switched our phone to a Google Voice and then have no phone in our house because all those robocalls go there. Like we just couldn't take it anymore. And the
Yeah.
amount of direct mail, the amount of stuff that ends up in the recycle bin is bananas. And I just feel like marketers in general, even now, before all that craziness starts, it's just like this constant barrage and there's so much noise. Everybody's losing the signal. Like there's just, it's hard to make out anything. And I think it's damaging to people. I think people are really overwhelmed, overstimulated. I'm finding myself a lot of the time thinking about how frequently do we want to be doing things? How often do we want to be sending messages out? You know?
Yeah, and I actually think it's going to get worse. And the reason I think it's going to get worse, and not to get technical or anything like that, but Google is very soon going to be eliminating our ability to do cookie tracking on people.
Yeah.
And for the listeners that don't really know what that means, right now, the way that you're able to get targeted ads delivered to you, whether it's on YouTube or banner ads or as you travel around the internet or on your phone, is through the ability for cookies to basically track you. And that's been the way the internet's operated for the last 20 some odd years.
Hmm.
But that's going away. And the reason I think that that's going to really impact what I would call the ethical side of marketing is marketers won't be able to target the same way.
Right.
So
Right.
what they have to do is they have to do more of this shotgun approach and more often.
Yeah.
And so the inundation that we're going to feel is going to, I think, be overwhelming in the next few years.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also think AI has something to do with it. And I wouldn't say AI is the problem. I would say the marketers' lazy misuse of AI.
Yeah.
There are ways to use it. There are levels of it. I can't tell you how many emails I get a day, literally a day, from the same type of company offering me the same kind of thing. It's all written terribly and it all sounds the same. And I can tell it's all AI generated. And it's just it's so disrespectful. Like literally 10, 20 times a day. I'm just like delete, 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 delete.
Yeah.
And I've and I
It's terrible.
yeah. Yeah. So recently you had an just on your do this, not that, which made me kind of think, oh, this is a good kind of boundary setting. It's like you're saying, literally, don't do that.
Right.
Um, you were talking about when is the best time to send an email, right?
Right.
And you kind of like helped gradually step back and say these are human beings. If someone is in a certain industry like cleaning services or a contractor,
Hmm.
they're going to get up earlier in the morning and
Yeah.
read their email way earlier than someone who's like a financial investor on Wall Street or
Yeah.
something, right? And it's literally just like putting yourself in people's shoes. What are other ways that you feel like marketers can do that?
In general, I think that we get caught up with okay, I'm marketing to, government professionals, so I need to speak a certain way. I'm marketing to HR executives. I need to speak a certain way. I'm marketing to grandparents, or this or that, and we don't consider that it's a person. They woke up, they had a cup of coffee, they're dropping their kids off, they're stressing out about their mortgage payment. They're just people, right?
Right.
And the marketing that resonates with us is this human to human, dialogue. To me, it's ironic. For example, let's say in email marketing, the emails that have the most, let's say, ridiculous subject lines, right? That are the most
Hmm.
poorly written thing, that have almost misspellings or capitalization where they shouldn't be, and grammatical mess. They'll do better than just the most serious, most formatted stuff, because we feel like, wow, this is connecting with me, as a person.
An actual human
And
wrote this.
yeah, exactly. And I also think
Hmm.
that's why one of the things why, influencer marketing has exploded and is exploding in every corner of marketing, where human beings I mean, yeah, you have big influence. Okay, Kim Kardashian will say do this, and okay, that's one kind of influencer marketing.
Mm-hmm.
But the micro influencers out there are really driving marketing in a big way right now, and it's because they're saying, "Hey, listen, I've tried this thing. I
Mm-hmm.
really like it. You should try it too." And that's the world that we live in. It's similar to, when you order an Uber, you're looking at what that rating is before you get in the car.
Right.
When you're going to go out for dinner, you're going to look at Yelp to see what did everybody else say before you get in there. So this social proofing, this collective thinking, and
Mm-hmm.
and us treating each other as human beings in all of our marketing, it's what's working and resonating.
Yeah. It's funny. We have a client that is it's a thrift store chain in multiple states. And we've been doing influencer marketing for the past 2.5 years and kind of increasing as we've learned, and it was kind of new when we started. So we kind of were figuring it out as we went along. And what we have found is that the micro influencers, the mom who goes to this thrift store all the
Hmm.
time and is getting stuff for her kids, or the stay-at-home mom with a very low income who's struggling and just barely making it and showing how you can still have, a quality life. Like, we find those have the most impact and draw the most engagement than the bigger names that cost us a lot more money.
Absolutely.
So it's really that human touch, that like struggle. We're all struggling. We're all just trying to make do.
It's all about being relatable,
Yeah. And
it,
authentic.
and authentic. And by the way, it's that way, whether you're marketing to consumers or you're marketing to
True.
business professionals or you're trying to build your own personal brand,
Hmm.
right? If you were to go on, LinkedIn or whatever and say, I won this award, I'm doing great things, like, who cares? Right?
Hmm.
What it's really about is, hey, I struggled with this thing. I figured out something. You might benefit from this too,
Hmm.
where you're sharing more, realness.
Yeah.
That is what we crave. It's also interesting what we're seeing is the type of content that we're seeing work better than any other type of content for businesses in general is what we call day in the life content, where,
Hmm.
let's say you're a plumber. You literally are videoing yourself. I'm going to go to this house and try to fix this a faucet that's not working, and then you come out and say, I fixed it. It's not a big deal. You should, check out. It's really easy to fix. Or I'm a hairstylist, or whatever. We love this day in the life content because it makes us feel connected, makes us feel like a human being. And it doesn't feel like we're just being, sold a song that we have to remember and some sort of logo and some sort of garbage.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. There are all these YouTubers in all these
Yeah.
crazy niches you never knew existed, that once you start, then YouTube starts showing them all to you.
Oh, yeah.
But there's a niche of people who do lawn work, going to homes where like there's an elderly person and everything's overgrown, and they just like clean up their yard for free, and the videos are like 2.5 hours long, and they have millions of views, and it's
Yeah.
like, and I think people have them on in the background while they're doing work or whatever, but it's like so incredible. Like, they just want to see that human experience, and it's just very satisfying to see, somebody help someone else or whatever.
100%.
And like, that's what this company's doing to market their lawn maintenance services. Hilarious to me, but it's very effective.
Yeah. And they're probably crushing it
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
that is the content. That is how we feel comfortable.
Right,
you
right.
know and I years ago you would print out brochures and try to hand them out to people. Who does that anymore? You don't do that. You know what I mean? That's not
Yeah.
where we're at. You point the phone at yourself, you're like, this is what I'm doing, you post it, and you're like,
Yeah.
great, and that's it.
I don't think we've designed a brochure in like 5 years.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And when someone hands me one, I'm like, oh, wow, look, a trifold brochure. Hello,
It's crazy.
1996. Yeah, it's weird.
It's even like business cards. I haven't had a business card, I don't know in how many years.
Oh no, I'm all about the business card.
You
Because
are?
I'm a nerd. I love the paper,
Oh,
and
no.
I collect them based on like the finishes and
Oh, wow.
yeah. I have an art background, so I get into all
there
that
you go.
nerdy, arty stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, this is like 100-pound paper, this is really cool.
Oh, I'm
And
like,
I'm like,
what's that coating? Yeah. I'm a total
oh yeah,
dork.
you're cool. That's really a party right
No,
there.
I'm a dork.
I'm a dork too, but I don't know anything about paper stock or anything.
We touched on a little bit with the YouTube and stuff, like,
Yeah.
so social media, it's like a big thing. As of this recording, there have been like congressional hearings about the impact of social media on younger people. We know it's hurting attention spans, it's contributing to depression and isolation and stuff. I know I struggle all the time with how much to participate on social media. Do you struggle with that at all? Is that something that crops up in your work?
Well, personally, look, first of all, I think one of the problems is that social media is not going anywhere,
Right.
right? So this
Absolutely.
idea of TikTok can get banned or this that's not going to
It's
be
not going to
real.
happen.
It's going right. It's part of our life. It's part of all of our lives for sure.
Mhm.
So and it can be super toxic. I try very hard for myself. I think haters. I don't like haters. That's the thing that bothers me the most. And what I've done in my own life is I don't. I tune them out. I could care less. I really could care less. To me, if somebody's a hater, they have their own issues. And I think that if you're going to be somebody that shares on social media, that is the first thing you shouldn't share on social media till you've wrapped your mind around that because they're going to come for you.
Yeah. Don't read the
Um,
comments.
and,
Don't read the comments.
read the positive ones. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
very good
Exactly.
at blocking people. I'm
Yeah.
exceptionally good at blocking people. And don't and I'm a big fan of not letting the loudest voice in the room dictate whatever it is that I'm doing,
Right.
because what happens is I could get in 100 nice things. Somebody say 100 nice things, but you get one bad one that says, you're an idiot. And that's the one that sticks with you. And then you tend to want to react to that and change your path. Like,
Mhm.
oh, I shouldn't be posting this much, or I shouldn't be doing this. Uh, 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 but you can't do that because that's not indicative of your audience or everybody you're marketing to or everything. So it's really important to not let that loudest voice change your course or change your path or change what you're thinking. And I think it's hard to do, but I wouldn't get involved in social media until you can have
Mhm.
your mind right about that.
Yeah. I also think it's important to prioritize and understand why you're doing it.
Yeah.
So we've really pulled back on certain platforms because I'm
Hmm.
like, well, that's not really gonna like we're on certain platforms for the podcast.
Yeah.
We're not on those same platforms for the agency because I'm not going to get customers that way. That's not where
Right.
they are. And I'm only doing I well, I have two reasons why I don't go on Facebook. One, I just think the platform is garbage. I have ADHD. It's overwhelming. They keep adding things like games and videos and stuff I am not interested in, and that I find overwhelming, and I end up in rabbit holes, and an hour goes by, and I'm like, what the? Um, and then the other reason is, how much of it is just vanity.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
I don't need to share with everyone what I made for breakfast. I don't. No one cares.
No. No.
And
No.
I
No.
often say
I
to people
agree
on
with
their
you.
websites, like we do a lot of websites, I often say, stop talking about yourself. Nobody cares about you. They care about their problem, and they're there to figure out if you can help them.
So where do
So,
you share? What is your primary platform?
for the for the agency, it's primarily LinkedIn.
Hmm.
For the podcast, we're on YouTube and we do a lot on Instagram. But I also find we get more engagement and more interest on LinkedIn. So even though we're
Yeah.
talking about mental health,
Yeah.
you know, I came to this whole thing as a business owner, and I'm finding that it's other business owners who are engaging with us and saying, "Oh my God, yes." Or I just had a post recently where I shared an episode and I talked about failure, and I've gotten so many interesting comments and feedback about that because who hasn't? Who hasn't experienced failure, especially if you're a business owner?
100%. No, I think first of all, failure is the most relatable topic
Yes.
because we all have failed. We fail every day, and we're scared of failure. And I do agree with you. LinkedIn, to me, is the best social platform on the planet for a couple of reasons. Number one, there's a billion people on there now, so if you're not really active on it, you should be.
Yeah.
But for some reason, everybody's very nice on
That's
LinkedIn.
right.
Like
The trolling
everybody's
doesn't
rooting
happen
for each
there.
other.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
I think
don't
because we all
have
know
the
how hard we're
same.
working and we're all
Yeah,
trying. Yeah. Yeah.
it's weird because like you could put the same post on Facebook or Instagram or whatever X or whatever, and you'll get really some weird comments. You put it on LinkedIn, and everyone's like rooting for you.
Yeah,
They're like
everyone's
hoping the best for
encouraging.
you.
Yeah, yeah,
It's really strange.
yeah. I
Um,
Yeah.
And so I love that.
I do too. There's I'm kind of involved in a sort of a mastermind group of
Mhm.
other agency heads. And one of them in this group recently posted, and he said, I don't normally post about personal stuff. It's usually all professional, but I, experienced this loss, someone I cared about. And he just talked about losing this person in grief. And this was a professional colleague, but they had been friends for many years. And I think he was worried he was going to be like, this is not appropriate for LinkedIn. And everybody just rallied around him. And because
Yes.
who hasn't experienced that, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that LinkedIn is really bleeding over to our lives in general.
Yeah.
Once in a while, you'll post something personal, and then you'll get a comment that'll be like, "This is a professional network, whatever," and that person gets a big block from me. Um,
Yeah. That's a
but
setting a boundary right there.
yeah, and I love it. So to me, it's probably from an ethical or from a just a good making you feel or organically good experience. I
Mhm.
think LinkedIn is fantastic. I'm like you. I haven't posted something on Facebook, gosh, in maybe 10 years.
Oh,
And I
well, you got
barely
me
go on
beat.
it. I like
Yeah.
the groups. The groups are good there. Other than the
Groups,
groups,
we find as marketers, groups are where it's at.
yeah,
Groups, that's where people make authentic recommendations. They're
totally.
networking with each other. I have a friend who has a small business and just started it last year. And her entire marketing strategy is going into Facebook groups and participating. And that's how she's driven business. And she has so much business, she doesn't know what to do with it. It's incredible.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
the groups are where it's at for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So, we're going to switch a little bit to like business ownership and stuff like
Okay.
that, because I know you're a very busy guy and you have to juggle a whole lot of priorities, and I'd love to talk about that.
Sure.
But real quick, I just kind of want to do like a flash thing. I know you're a guy who has a lot of pet peeves.
Yes,
I hear them on your podcast, and I
that's true.
appreciate them. Top 3 pet peeves of marketing that you feel like people shouldn't be doing.
Oh, wow. I think that probably my number one that's always in my brain is marketers rely on, like, they'll Google what are the best practices for whatever, and they'll Google it. They'll find some sort of random, PDF they could download or something, whatever, and then they will march around with, this is the best practice for this thing. And invariably, that information's old. I don't care what the date on it is. It's old, it's outdated. And instead of them finding out for themselves and testing and trying, they live by this Bible of stupidity. And so that's a huge, huge pet peeve of mine.
I
For
agree.
sure.
Yeah. I would say it's the best practice for that person at that time. For some
Yeah.
people, like it's
Right.
not, we don't know. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Any other
Absolutely.
that come to mind
What
real
are
quick?
other well, what's one of yours?
I have a pet peeve of people talking about themselves too much on their websites.
Yeah.
And the other one is assuming everybody's already heard half the conversation. People who already make the assumption you know who they are, and so they don't actually describe what they do. They don't really, like it's, and so you're not everybody's John Deere. Everybody knows what John Deere does. I
Right.
don't know what you do. So I find that very annoying. I also really hate it when people don't proofread their work. And so how
Uh-oh.
many times have I gotten an email, you'll appreciate this,
Probably from
where it
me.
says, no, not you. You're just,
Uh-oh.
yeah. It's like dear bracket, first name
Oh, yeah.
bracket. Like they didn't test the email, like test and proofread your work. I feel
Yeah.
like if someone's paying you to do marketing, don't be sloppy. I just have no patience for that.
Well, I think one of my other pet peeves is something that I am struggling with, okay, which is so bad, which is following up. Um, I don't think people do a good job of following up, and I am right now in like I'm the worst follow-up zone of my life, I think, right now. And so I am a victim. I am doing the pet peeve. But I think in general, nobody follows up with each other anymore, and they don't do a good job of it, and it drives me bananas. And by the way, anybody listening I'm supposed to follow up with, I'm really sorry.
You know what? That's a really good place to stop for a second,
Okay.
because I think that ties into like how busy we are as business owners
Yes.
and entrepreneurs. And so let's take a break and we'll circle back to that.
Okay.
We'll be right back. That's a Hard No is brought to you by Clever Girl Marketing. my full-service agency specializing in smart, strategic marketing solutions for businesses and nonprofits. Okay, so you're probably wondering, Heather, what's with the podcast about boundaries? Why not marketing? Well, maybe in the future, but for now, it actually does relate, so bear with me here. Smart marketing, strategic marketing, requires knowing what to say no to and why. Businesses and nonprofits get inundated with marketing options and offers every day. We help you cut through all that noise, focus on your specific needs, and develop actionable strategies that are doable and actually make sense. Whether it's websites, SEO, email, social, or traditional channels, we're experienced in all of it. So if you need help figuring out your marketing, visit our website, clevergrowmarketing.com, and get in touch. Welcome back. I was just so excited to talk with Jay, and I hope you can appreciate his grounded approach to work and life from our conversation. Something that really struck me about talking with him was how strong his sense of right and wrong is in all aspects of his life, not just the marketing side. I brought it up with him later, but I really used to string myself out. If a client of mine asked to chat at 9 p.m., I'd probably say yes before this whole journey was saying no and setting boundaries. And Jay's response to that was rightfully so, to be shocked. It's super clear how much he values the power of saying no and sticking up for yourself. His perspective on work, on life, and on personal growth are super valuable. Whether it's his business, his family life, managing burnout, there's really a powerful message in there. Jay believes, and I believe, that you can only do right by people by doing right by yourself. Okay, so let's follow up on following up.
Okay. I love it.
This is a problem I struggle with all the time as a business owner. I can't tell you in my leads, CRM, how many people I need to get back to with proposals, and it weighs on me. And then, 3 or 4 different client fire drills happen and I blink and it's Friday again. Like, what the?
Exactly.
And I think we all struggle with that. I have someone whose proposal I owe to them, who has a problem just following up with people that she did a consultation with, or maybe she worked with them a year ago and they definitely could use her services again a year later, has no way to follow up with them. I think we
Right.
all struggle with this as business owners.
Oh, I mean, it's horrendous. And the irony is, what do we do on the flip side? Instead of doing great follow up, we're like, well, how do we get more business? Let's keep on
Yes.
pushing our marketing out there.
Yeah,
Let's keep
yeah.
prospecting
Yeah.
and reaching out. And like, meanwhile, if you stop pushing and prospecting, you literally focus on all the opportunities that you're supposed to be following up on, you
Mhm.
do really well. And
Yeah.
I do this
I
too.
know.
This is the
Yeah.
problem I deal with too.
Yeah.
And I think if you could prioritize following up, I think it'd be the most game changer thing you could do for your business and for you personally. Because like you just mentioned, you have this proposal, you need to get somebody, right? I guarantee you that's been sitting in your mind,
Oh, it weighs
for
on
an
me every
inordinate
day.
amount of time,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And ultimately, it won't even take you that long to do it. The amount
No.
of time in your brain is taking it longer than the actual doing part, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the irony of it all.
Yeah. 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 And it's not like I'm actually going out looking for more opportunities, but things happen. Things fall into your lap.
Yes.
I can't talk. Life happens. And but you're right. Like the amount of real estate it takes in my brain as I'm doing other things or putting out fires, honestly, it could have been done 3 times over.
Yeah, and
So
it's funny you say that like things fall in your lap. I'm on this new thing in my brain that I don't believe in attribution when it comes to marketing. The big thing is attribution. You did this marketing program and you got these customers in
mhm.
type of thing. And I think the world that we live in now is that, you'll have this podcast, you'll put out some social posts, you'll do emails, you do other thought leadership stuff, you have one-to-one calls. And then, let's say I circle back 6 months from now and I'm like, hey, we should be doing business together. I remember you do a lot with nonprofits or something like that because you mentioned that, whatever. And I just think it's this idea of just being real, being
Mhm.
out there, being yourself, not doing things with an agenda. Not
Mhm.
everything needs to have a call to action.
Mhm.
And like you said, things kind of come your way. I think that's really the path for marketing, unless you're selling socks or something.
Yeah, I think if we, like, as you were saying, like, focus on following up, like if we just turn around and face the other way,
Yeah.
Just turn back and look at
Yeah.
people. And I think it's what it's common with marketing is like the best results are from relationship building
Absolutely.
and follow through. Like
Yes.
seriously, right?
In all aspects of your life too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I know you're a really busy guy. You've got a lot going on. You've got
We
this
all do.
guru media with all these events, which
Right.
my team has attended.
Oh,
If
nice.
I can't attend, I'm like, hey, go do this thing.
Nice.
You've got your podcast, you've got
Yep.
the email thing. You
Yep.
know, you're managing a lot.
Right.
How do you do all that and not go bananas? Like I know I've had to really learn to set boundaries around time and rest and all kinds of things.
Yeah,
How
that's a
do you
really
do
good
it?
question. So it's hard. And look, everybody's busy. We all have a million things going on. And we have families and we have a personal life where you want to
Sure.
try to have one and all this stuff. I've gotten pretty good at blocking out my calendar,
Mhm.
meaning that I do certain things at certain times and I lock in on that. I don't deviate. I don't like grab my phone and go on social media.
Mhm.
I don't just respond to emails as they come in. I used to do that. I literally block out my calendar, like, okay, I'm focusing on this thing for the next hour, and that's
Yep.
it. And I also try to end my day at a normal hour. And then when I end my day, unless there's some sort of real fire drill going on, that's it. I shut it down.
Mhm.
I don't I don't kind of go back and look at my work stuff at 9, 10 o'clock at night or anything like
Right.
that.
Right.
Because if you don't have a life outside of your work life, then you're just not going to be a happy person.
Right.
And that doesn't work. So I think the biggest thing is don't waste time. You know,
Yes. Be
like
efficient with your
really
time.
don't waste time. Don't be like, oh, I'll sit here and do this and kind of look at my phone or text this
Yeah.
person. Organize your day, maximize your time, and you'll have time for everything you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with that. I think one of the big game changers for me years ago was to not check my email first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
I set my day. I sit down with a piece of paper and a pen
Yeah.
and I say, these are the things on top of mind that I need to focus on today. And then around noon or 1 o'clock, I check my email. And then as long as I'm getting back to people within 12, 24 hours, I'm like, usually everything's fine, unless there's a crazy fire drill. And now we have systems and I've hired some people to help me so that, it's not always me with the fire hose.
But you know what's interesting about that is I also think that you're training the people on the other end that you're
Yeah.
communicating with. If somebody texts you or emails you and you instantly get back to them,
Yes.
that is the expectation they have from you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to live up to that expectation. So you're setting yourself up for failure,
Yeah.
by doing that.
True.
So I try hard to be
Yeah.
aware of that. And the other piece that I've really started to do in the last 12 months is I carve out a chunk of time for stuff I have no idea what it's going to be. Usually it's Fridays. I have a couple of hours. We'll have calls with people that I have no agenda. I'm not trying to get business from them. I just want to meet them. I want to say hello to them, or maybe I'll do a podcast or that or whatever, to just try to just have get to know people on a different level.
Yeah.
And just like relationship building and carving out time just for that has been fantastic.
I love that. I have so I have this color coded calendar and I have like purple, it means hold, don't book anything there. I need that time. And so Friday is my hold time, but somehow things bleed over. I end up
Yeah.
doing podcast interviews or
Right,
whatever.
right.
So I do that. Talking about training people what to expect. So
Yeah.
I have this, our terms and conditions of what it's like to work with us, what to expect when working with us, what your responsibilities are, what ours are. They're on a web page. It's kind of hidden on my website. And I share that with clients before they sign on.
Cool.
And it's a living, breathing document that changes every time we have a problem. I'm like, how do we prevent this with terms and conditions, right? And so years ago, I used to have clients that would text me at 7 a.m. and say, hey, can you talk now?
Yeah.
And I would say yes. Like, what?
Oh, don't do
And,
that.
or they'd call me at 7 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock at night and I would answer the phone. And so I had to put in, like, you can speak with us between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah.
By phone, or you can email us or text us. We will respond within 12 to 24 hours. Like we just had to make those guardrails clear. And we have one client this retailer we deal with who sometimes, they're open till 9 p.m. and they're open on weekends. So I don't have to answer, but we have designated people who can reply. But yeah, I years ago I put those guardrails up. It's like I'm not a surgeon with a pager on call all the time, right? It's just a website. It's not someone's life on the line.
Oh yeah. Well, actually, I learned it from my wife because my wife's a physician, and people would just be, and she's a dermatologist, and so people would just nonstop be like sending her pictures of like, what is this, you know, and texting her like, what is this? Well,
Oh, no.
and after her first few years, she's like, okay, I need to let people know this ain't how it's going to be, and I
That's so funny.
took something from that playbook because that's what was happening to me too, and I was like, this is ridiculous. And to your point, I love the fact that you have this terms and conditions about kind of how people can interact with you because I think it's super smart. I need to do that because
I'll send you a link. You can copy.
yeah, no, it's a management of expectations, and then nobody gets pissed, and that's
Right.
good.
Right. The whole sending pictures of like moles and stuff, that reminds me of like someone hands you a milk carton and they go, smell this. Anytime someone says smell this, I'm like, no, not interested. I'm
It
never
is
going to smell whatever it is.
the craziest thing is like we'll go out to dinner, and then people will walk up to our table and they'll be like, I'm
No.
so sorry to bother you. Can you tell me what this is? And I'm like,
While you're
this
eating.
is disgusting. Like, what is going on? I'm like, your job is gross.
What does she do? Does she
She's a
have a-
dermatologist. I do mean, what does she do at the dinner?
Yeah.
She'll be like, I have office hours, please come to my office, because she doesn't
Yeah.
even have her equipment. She's not like going to stop dinner and be like, whatever.
Yeah.
And she's like, and then they'll walk away. And I'm like, what is that? She goes, people like, they don't, it's crazy.
You know what though? You know what that is? And I feel like as marketers, we've kind of helped encourage this a little bit, or not as marketers, I would say as people on social media, we're all used to an immediate response.
Yes.
It's that dopamine. I'm putting this out there. I want a response now. If someone texts me and I don't text right away, there are a few people who will call me and go, "Did you get my text?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I got your text."
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah. And
I
then
will answer your text when I'm ready.
and they think, well, it's just one text, right? And they don't realize that, okay, that you're one, but there's others, right? And so you're representative of a whole group.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So boundaries, I think, are critical.
Yeah, absolutely. What are other pitfalls as a business owner that you learned about early on, or that you advise other, people starting out?
And this is going to sound so bad. I know this is not going to come out right, but people, I'll talk to people like, oh, I feel burnt out. It's overwhelming. There's too much to always do. And my reaction to that a lot of times is, that's the way it's going to be. I know that's terrible, but the reason I say that is that, if you are going to be a business owner, it's not always easy.
No, it's
you're
hard.
dealing
It's the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah, you're dealing with a lot. And I don't like the word burnout, but you are going to feel at times, really, can I even handle this? And you'll have imposter syndrome for sure.
Yep.
And I'll never forget my grandfather. He said something that literally stuck with me forever, which was my favorite piece of advice. I was really struggling to feel like, I felt like I'm inadequate and everything I do, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't even know how to do this, whatever. And I was really having a down moment. And he put his arm around me and he said, Jay, he goes, stupider people than you have been able to do this. And I was
That's
like,
what I told my husband about parenting.
Right, exactly.
6 billion people on this planet. We can figure it out.
and for some reason, I know it's terrible, but it's like, yeah, you know what? It's true.
Yeah.
And so this idea of imposter syndrome and everyone feels it every day if you're a business owner, for sure. And this idea of burnout, yeah, you want to get your life so it doesn't feel like it's horrific, but it's not going to be easy, and it's never going to be really easy. That's just the reality of it. And I know that that's not the right thing to say, but that's the truth.
Yeah. So we talk about burnout a lot on this podcast, but 2 thoughts. One is, it came to me an epiphany years ago that, like, no matter how hard I work, how many hours I put in, how nice I am to people, there will always be more work. I could literally work 24/7 and there would always be something to do. And there will always be someone pissed at me because I didn't get back to them or do what they want right when they want it. No matter what I do,
100%.
no matter how far I bend over backwards, right? And the other thing is that's imposter syndrome. So my friend Jen Prohaska, who was just on our podcast, she's a friend of mine. She's who turned me on to subjectline.com. So I want to
Oh,
give her
nice.
full
Thank you.
credit.
Hi, Jen.
She's great, great copywriter, brand messages. Years ago, we were sitting together, we were working in a co-working space, and she came and she sat down next to me. And this was years ago. She's like, "Do you know what a UTM link?" And I was like, "No, what is it?" And she's like, "I don't know, but ask me in a week and I'll be an expert." And that is business ownership and marketing in a nutshell, right?
Yes.
Like what I tell clients is I'm not an expert in everything. I'm not. I'm an expert at learning things and figuring out how to apply them for you. And so that got me over the imposter thing all the time.
That's
not all the time, but I mean,
no, that's 100%
most
right.
of the
Go
time.
figure it out and test and
learn
try
it.
stuff.
Yeah.
You know, a couple years ago when I started doing these virtual events, these big virtual events, I literally had no idea what I was doing, like zero.
Mhm.
And I also would go around and ask people their advice, and they gave me epically horrible advice. And they told me not to do it. It's the
Oh,
dumbest
no.
idea
Yeah.
ever. But you just have to go and try and iterate and not be afraid to fail. And that's how you succeed. It's you know, failing your way to success.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely we recently had an episode about falling forward. Just like
Yeah.
as long as you're moving forward, it's okay to fall flat on your face. Just keep going, right? That's how you learn. That's
Listen,
back to the failure conversation.
right. Your first podcast episode is going to be your worst. Your first
Yep.
workout is going to be your worst. Your first newsletter is going to be your worst. You
Yep.
got to have a worst before you have a best. That's
Yeah.
just life.
Yeah. I had a client show me like their whole Instagram feed, and they were like embarrassed about the beginning stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, she's like, "Should I delete it?" I'm like, "No, leave it in there. This shows, you know, your development as an organization." And I also have people all the time who come to me and they say we need a new website or whatever, and they're embarrassed about their website. And they say, "I'm so embarrassed because all the stuff on there is outdated or whatever." And
Yeah.
I constantly am saying that actually is a sign that you've grown. That's a good thing. It's a good thing you've outgrown your website. It just means
Right.
you've evolved and now you can do so much more. And so it's just time. There's no good or bad. So
Totally. I
yeah.
agree with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Jay, you're doing all these things. Why don't you tell people more about you and what you're up to and how people can find you and all the cool things that you have to offer?
Oh, that's very nice. Yeah, I'll tell you everybody some free stuff because free is really the most fun stuff. So first off, I do have a podcast. If you want to check it out, you can probably just find it. Look under my name. It's called "Do This Not That," where we share stuff every single week. Pretty short episodes, all about marketing stuff and life. So that's a fun thing. But then the other two big free resources I would mention are subjectline.com. If you have anything to do with marketing, you can go to subjectline.com.
Totally agree.
You
Everybody
use it.
use that. Yeah.
I love it. So it's free. You go there, you put your subject line in. It's kind of fun. It tells you how good or bad it is. It rewrites it for you using AI. So that's subjectline.com.
Can I pause for a moment?
Yeah.
And I don't think you need to rely on it all the time. It's a great teaching tool. I've used it
It's a
with
starter.
It's like with young coordinators who are starting with us. Like we use it as a tool to say, "Let me show you why this works. Let me show you why you should use an emoji or why
Right.
like." And it's just a great tool to kind of like learn with.
Well, I appreciate that. And it's a starting tool. It's not going to be like your perfect subject line or anything like that that's going to write for you. But it's raising really the whole point of the site is to raise people's awareness that it's an important part of your marketing. And so, yeah, we've checked 15 million subject lines there. So that's pretty cool. And then sticking on the email thing, we put on a really large free virtual marketing conference called Guru Conference. You could register for free at guruconference.com. It's the world's largest virtual email event. We had 20,000 people last year. We just literally opened up the registration today. So, so it's free to register at guruconference.com. And if you want to know anything about me, you can just go to my full name, jschwedelson.com, and connect and find me on LinkedIn. And I love talking to people and connecting. So all that. Yeah.
Any last parting words about marketing, boundaries, life in general, pet peeves, whatever?
I'll tell you, I think that what you're doing here is really valuable because so many other podcasts that are out there are like, okay, like mine, like do this or don't do that in marketing, whatever. And you don't really get the chance to take a deep breath and say, okay, is what we're doing, right by people? Is it right by ourselves? Is there a better way to kind of live your every day in this crazy, world that we are operating in? So I think that you're really providing value to the market. So I appreciate you including me. It's awesome.
Thank you so much, Jerry. That really means a lot to me. Thank you. Well, thanks for coming on. Like, this is like one of my big things I can check off. Like, I
Oh,
got Jay on. This is cool.
yeah.
So thank you
Thank you
very, very
again.
much. I really appreciate you taking the time and
Absolutely.
sharing your insights with everyone.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's a Hard No is a production of Clever Girl Marketing, my little agency in Cleveland, in partnership with our friends at Evergreen Podcasts. Many thanks to our amazing team, including Laura Del Rosario, our production and marketing coordinator, Noah Fouts, our amazing producer, editor, and composer who wrote our theme music and performed it with his band, The Big Leagues, and our new video producer and editor, Kay Holmberg. You can find show notes and resources on our website, and you can find other fun stuff on our socials. We're Hard No Podcast. Find your no, then say it with me.